Welcome to Listening from the Heart, a dialogue about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the American Friends and Parents Circle Families Forum. I'm Jim Marchant, Vice President and Chief of Staff here at Pitzer. I'm fortunate to serve as chair of the Constructive Dialogue Organizing Committee, the CDOC as we call it on campus. And the CDOC is one of the sponsors of the CDOC program. This program and others sponsored by the CDOC are part of Pitzer President Strom Thacker's Constructive Dialogue Initiative, which he envisioned and developed to help our community successfully navigate challenging conversations about difficult issues. President Thacker regretfully cannot be here tonight as he's traveling on the East Coast for visitors. This event is also sponsored by the Melvin L. Oliver Racial Justice Initiative at Pitzer. Thank you to Professor Ahmed Al-Washab for his support of this event. And I also want to thank members of the Constructive Dialogue Organizing Committee, some of whom are here tonight. Thank you for being here. And also I want to thank alumna and trustee Julie Flappin for connecting us with the American Friends of the Parents Circle. I also want to recognize the chair of the Pitzer Board, Don Gould, and his wife Rhonda. Thank you for being here this evening. Of course, I want to welcome and thank all of you that are here to listen and to learn. And I especially want to thank our guests from the Parents Circle, Families Forum, who will be opening up and speaking very candidly in person this evening. The stories of the members and their work will carry a message of empathy, reconciliation, and finding shared value across differences, and will undoubtedly leave a lasting impact on all of us here and those who watch and listen to the program later. And with that, I would like to note that we are recording tonight's event, and it will be available for viewing through the Pitzer website in the next 2 days. So at this time, I would like to introduce the Executive Director of the American Friends of the Parents Circle, Shiri Orion, who will introduce tonight's speakers and facilitate the conversation in the program. Welcome, Shiri.
Should we ask them to come to the front?
This is going to be an intimate conversation, and so we have a request from our members for you to come close. They want you to be close and intimate. Not too intimate, but more.
Look how nice everybody is. They're doing it immediately.
They need that. Sure, come as close as you want. They don't bite, not yet, anyway. See how polite Americans are?
We want?
They're polite and obedient.
Good, very good.
That's very good. Okay, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Jim, for helping us organize all of this, and just thank you to Julie as well for making this possible. I'm Shiri. I'm based here in the U.S. I run the American Friends of the Parents Circle, which means that I'm in charge of all of the activities and awareness raising for the Parents Circle and the work that they're doing on the ground in Israel and Palestine. And tonight you're going to have the opportunity to hear from 4 incredible women. And you really are, and it's my privilege to be touring all over the United States with them. I think this is our 7th trip since October 7th.
This is great.
There's a lot of work to be done, and we're doing our best this week. We're in the LA area, so we were at USC, we're here today, we're speaking at UCLA, Cal State Northridge. Where else are we going? We're going to Occidental, and they're going to the Bay Area, and they're going to speak in Stanford and Berkeley and some public events as well. We aren't just a university group, but because of everything that's been happening since October 7th on college campuses, we have been called on from many, many organizations, including college campuses, to come and help bridge divides, to help have a conversation, to help people have some sort of meaningful dialogue around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because here in the United States, we have not done a very good job at that, right? We've done a very good job at importing the conflict into our backyards, into our college campuses, into our mosques and churches and synagogues and our neighborhoods. What we haven't done a good job at yet is to have meaningful conversation. And so our hope tonight is that when you hear from these 4 women, that you will see an example of what it means to pay a very high price to the conflict. These women have lost the most dear people in their lives, and they are choosing to sit next to each other as partners in peace. Not one against another, but partners in peace.
Okay.
If they can do it, then surely those of us here in, where are we, Claremont, California, can do that. We've been asking our audiences when we come to speak, because this is such a charged topic, we've been asking our audiences to do a favor before we start, and we're going to ask you to do the same. I'm going to ask you to turn off your social media posts, put them to the side. Take off your protest posters, put them to the side. Take off your flags, whatever they may be, put them aside. And listen with your hearts. Okay? Listen with your hearts. Yes. Who are we going to start with? We have Maury Noon from Israel, and Robbie Damlin from Israel, and Sima Awad from Palestine, the West Bank, and Leila Amshef, also from Palestine and the West Bank. Who we're going to start with? They're all members of the Parent Circle. They all have incredible stories. I think more will start with you. Your loss is most recent. Can you tell us what your life was like on October 6th? And then tell us what your life was like on October 7th.
Sure. So, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Maura, and thank you for coming and for listening to us. On October 6th, I live in Tel Aviv, in Israel. I have 3 children. And on October 6th, it was a Jewish holiday evening, a regular day. I hosted my extended family in my apartment in Tel Aviv. We had a really, really nice meal, and it was a wonderful evening. We were dancing and laughing. We are a very warm family, and we have this habit when we meet to leave our mobiles on the side so we could focus on each other. And it was just a wonderful evening. Around midnight, my parents decided to head back to their home in Moshav Nativa Saran. It's right by the border with Gaza, 16 minutes drive from Tel Aviv. Please. And I tried to convince them to stay because it was very late, but my father always preferred to sleep in his bed, and they left at midnight. The next morning, the morning of October 7th, started for me at 7:45. My sister woke me up. She called me up and woke me up. We didn't wake up earlier in the silence in Tel Aviv. And she woke me up and she told me that something was going on in the southern part of Israel and that she was very worried about my parents. We tried to call them and there was no answer. And I think I've probably called them dozens of times and there was still no answer. And in retrospect, what we learned was that two Hamas people entered the house around 7:45, the same time that my sister woke me up. And they shot my parents and set the house on fire. And that we learned later in the evening. The entire day we spent waiting and waiting to understand what was going on. So this is in very short what happened to us on October 7th.
And since then, since that horrible day.
So since
It's not good that
That's
you
good. Hello? It's good. Okay, so since that day, it was a wake-up call for me. Because before this happened to me, I was working in the high-tech industry in Israel. I was a VP for program and projects. And I didn't spend much time thinking or involving myself with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I sort of was living in a bubble of normality. And this was a wake-up call for me, that something was totally wrong in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and that I decided to do what I could to work towards resolving this conflict in a non-violent way. And this is why I chose to join the Parents Circle, because I identified so much with the values that this organization is promoting.
And Moore's very humble, so she's not telling you that.
I'm the I volunteered to become the chairperson of the board of the Parents Circle just a few months after I joined. And I work very closely. We have a joint board for Israelis and for Palestinians. We have one manager, Israeli manager, and one Palestinian manager, and we work very closely together to lead this organization.
Thank you. Robbie? Robbie. Robbie,
Yes.
you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Tell us why you joined the Parents Circle.
Well, the army came to tell me that my son David had been killed by a Palestinian sniper. My immediate reaction was, you can't kill anybody in the name of my child. I have no idea that I said that, but this is what they told me. I knew almost immediately that I wanted to do something to prevent other families from experiencing this pain. It was a while back, and I've been saying lately, people ask me, what, you're still grieving? But the fact is that my child is still dead and I still love him. And so we have to look at what you do. What do you actually choose to do when you lose a child? Many parents die together with their children, not physically. They just disappear into themselves. Some build monuments, some do scholarships. And I chose to do education because that's who David, my son, was. He was studying for his master's in the philosophy of education. We can talk more about that, but I really want, people keep asking me, how can you go on doing this over and over for so long? And I think that it's such a drive that I have in me to make change. And what happened on October the 7th, my reaction was actually quite similar to when David was killed. I had to change the world overnight. That's not really possible, but that's what I wanted to do. And my survival tactic means that I work. The more work I find, the more I do. And that's quite strange, but that's a survival tactic for me. Along with all of this story came the man who killed my son. I believe very strongly in restorative justice, and so I wanted very much to meet him. But there was this huge conflict when I first heard that they actually caught him, because now there was a face. Now, does that mean that I really mean what I say when I talk about him? Is it okay for me to walk around the world or to travel around the world and actually talk about peace and love and non-violence and all these lovely words? Or do I really mean it? And it took me maybe 3 months, and I wrote a letter to the family of the man who killed David. And I asked, really I wanted to tell them about the Parents Circle. We are now 800 families, and it's an extraordinary thing that since the beginning of the war, only 3 families have left. That's a miracle. We have 80 new members, and you can imagine how extraordinary it is to have somebody that talks like Moore and her other sister and her 2 brothers. That for me is the hope. And so I really actually want to understand why people do things. Where does this all come from? Where is this anger that can push somebody to do something? How could this man kill my son? It took him, not only my son, but 10 people. What was the cause of all of this. And when I wrote the letter to the parents, 2 Palestinians delivered it. And it turns out that this man had seen his uncle violently killed by the Israeli army when he was a small child. And he lost 2 further uncles in the second uprising. So for him, that was revenge, to kill 10 people, in my opinion. And so that's the understanding. And why am I talking about understanding? Because I want to turn back to October the 7th, because my reaction was very similar. It's my survival tactic. I wanted to do something immediately, and actually, as Shiri told you, this is the 7th time we've been to America since the 7th of October. Plus, we've been to Italy, where they thought it necessary to have 2 policemen look after us, and to Germany and to England, and I went to India for 4 days. Bit crazy. So that's just the beginning of a whole long line of stories, and I want you to not think that we are 4 exceptional people. We are 4 people as part of an organization. We could have maybe the whole of the parent circle sit here for days and tell you these amazing stories of transformation. So we just represent them. And we will talk about the work that we're doing. We'll talk about why we want students to listen with empathy, even if they don't agree.
Robbie, the man who killed your son is now serving 10 life sentences. And after October 7th and the ceasefire, there were prisoner exchanges for hostages. And you spoke out about that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
For me, the sanctity of human life is much more important than revenge or than keeping somebody in prison. And so I wrote an op-ed in which I said they should free Thaya, that's his name, if that would bring back just 1 hostage. Wasn't that more important? Of course, that didn't make me very popular, but I'm quite used to that.
Thank you.
So, good.
Seema deserves a very warm welcome today because this is her first time in the United States. This is her first time in California. This is her first time on an airplane. Her first time outside of the West Bank. So warm welcome for Seema.
Yes, only second time talking.
Yes, it's her second time because she's really grown up with the parent circle. And so this is her first time traveling on behalf of the parent circle in the United States. And we're so excited to have you here with us, really, Seema.
Thank you so much.
You could be studying here. Right? You're 19 years old, so the age of a college student. But your life has been very different than probably most of the college students here.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your life and what brought you to the parent circle?
Okay. So, thank you all. First of all, thank you all for coming here. My name is Seema, and I'm 19 years old. I have 3 sisters and 4 brothers. I lost my older brother Mahmoud when he was 17 years old by Israeli sniper. He was trying to protect a house from bombing, and he killed by Israeli sniper. He got a shot in his stomach and up to his heart. He was the light of our life. He was the first son of my mother. So he was the light of her life. She was laughing for him and living for him. So you can imagine what happened to our life when we lost him. When Mahmoud killed, I was 3 years old, and I couldn't understand what is happening in my house. The only thing that I grew up with is grief and sadness, full of
sadness. And I couldn't have a connection with my family, also with my mother.
That's right.
My mother forgot how to be a mother for her children because of her grief. So that made me feel, or that made me think, am I the only child, or the whole children is living with that pain and that grief in their childhood? And after a few years of grief and sadness, my mother friend told her that there is a certain woman who shared their grief and pain, and invited her to go there. And she said yes. She went there and she saw an Israeli woman. She was Robi. I'll always mention that. She was Robi. And my mom said that she doesn't want to talk with her, or she doesn't want to sit with her. She's an Israeli, and Israelis killed her son, so I don't want to talk with her. And Robi stopped her and told her that she's also a mother who lost her son, and she can feel her pain. They are sharing their own stories, and Robi showed her a picture of David, her son, and they started crying. And that moment, my mom realized that there is no difference between Palestinian or Israeli in this pain. They are women, they are mothers who lost their sons. And Robi told her that, invited her to join a prayer circle, and she told us about that. And our neighbors told my mother, "Are you buying your son blood?" And she said, "No, actually I'm selling my other son's blood. I don't want more pain, and I don't want more lose.
Yes.
I just want to be a mother again for my children, and I just want to live again for my children." So she joined the Buried Circle, and after a few years, when I was 14 years old, my mom told me to join a summer camp, which is a Palestinian and Israeli children. I was afraid at first to join that summer camp because it's my first time to meet an Israeli side. And the reason I went to blame them, that why I grew up with that pain and with that sadness, why you did that, why you killed my brother. But when I went there and I saw them and laughed with them, I cried with them, I played with them, I realized that they are children just like me. They are not thinking of killing, or they are thinking of hope, they are thinking of life. And yeah, just like to action. Thank you.
Thank you, Seema.
You're welcome.
Leila? Last but certainly not least,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about you and also about what life is like for you living in the West Bank.
Yeah. Very.
So I was born in Jordan, but my father had many stories about Palestine, about his childhood. So for me, it's become like a dream to go there and to live. And I thought I will go to paradise. And when I went there, I've been so happy, especially after I have 2 children. But the second uprising started during that time, and the situation was so crazy for me because that was the first time I lived in a situation like that. And that happiness was ended 11th of April 2002 when my son, Hussein, that was his name, At that time, he was just 6 months old. He woke up in very critical condition because at that night, the Israeli soldiers came to our village and they threw tear gas, and because of that, he became sick. So because we live in a village outside Bethlehem, so when we tried to take him to a hospital, the Israeli soldiers prevented us and they said it's a military zone. So the next chance was to take him to Hebron, the next city to Bethlehem, but again they told us that the main road is closed. So the last chance was to take him through rough and long road between villages. But again, for the third time, the Israeli soldiers stopped us for more than 4 hours. We tried to talk to them, we tried to beg them and tell them that our son should be in a hospital as soon as possible, but they didn't listen. Finally, when we get to the hospital, the doctor said it's too late to save his life. And after a few hours, he died. Our life became upside down, everything became totally different. From that day, I was filled with hatred, anger, because I blame all the Israeli about the death of my son, because when I think about what happened and why, like he just 6 months old, he didn't commit anything, but the only crime that he did, that he's a Palestinian. I didn't think to take revenge, because revenge will never bring him back. But I thought that I will never have any kind of relationship with any Israeli person, because for me, all of them have a blood of my son in their hands.
Very good.
When Sima spoke about her mother, she reminded me of myself. I remember that I thought I'm the only one is grieving. I forget about my husband, I forget about my other daughter, and I think I'm the only one who feels sad. And one day I went back home and I saw my husband collect all his clothes and toys and even his bed and try to give them away. And I started to fight with him and I said to him, the Israel took his life and now you want to take the memories and take the rest of things that we have for him. And I blame him even because he named him Qusay. Qusay in Arabic means something far away. And I said cruel things to him. And I thought that I'm his mother, but I forget that he's his father. But maybe because he didn't cry in front of me, I thought that he didn't feel anything. But that was really totally wrong. And after time, I apologized to my husband after I really understand what I did to him, and I hurt him so much. Even after his death, we ignore what happened. We couldn't spoke about that day. After 16 years, I met one of my friends, and we started to talk about life, about children. And then he told me about the parent circle. And I stopped him and I said, "Are you crazy? How could you talk to me about this kind of organization?" And he said to me, "I have a question for you. Why until now you didn't tell your other children about what happened to their brother?" I said, "Because I don't want them to be part of this cycle of violence, because if they know, maybe they start to think to take revenge. I lost one of them and I'm not ready to lose another one." So he said to me, "Maybe this will be a good chance for you, not just to protect your children, maybe other families." And I thought that he's crazy, and he imagined that because I didn't hear about these kind of organization before. So he kept calling me every 3 days, 4 days. And one day he said to me, "There's a conference in Bethlehem for the Parent Circle and you should come." And I said, "Yeah, of course," just to make him stop talking about that. And that day in the morning, I started to find excuse because I didn't want to go there. And then he called me and he said, "I'm waiting you on the car, get dressed. I know that you're trying to find excuse because you didn't want to go there." And I said, "Oh my God, he will never leave me alone, so I should go there just to make him stop talking about this." So when we arrived, it was maybe a big room like this. There were just Palestinians. We sat, we talked. 5 minutes later, when the Israeli tried to enter that room, I felt something aching in my chest. I didn't want to be with them. I didn't want to see them. And I tried to leave. And he tried to convince me, and when I tried to leave, I saw something really amazed me, how the Israeli and the Palestinian laugh with each other, kiss each other, and talk and we're like family members, not just even friends. And that was the first time I saw something like that. And I decided to say, because I want to listen to them, I want to know what's the thing that make them so close to each other like that.
Okay.
So when I heard the Palestinian, that was kind of story that I know or I heard before. But when the Israelis started to talk about how they lost loved ones, I was really shocked and touched and moved, because that the first time I heard their stories. And for the first time I felt we share the same pain, we share the same tears, even if we had different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member. And no one could understand that pain unless someone being in the same situation. From that day, I decided to participate in one of the projects to learn much more about the Israeli, because as a Palestinian, we just met soldiers or settlers, so we didn't have any contact or any kind of talking. So I participate in one of the project. It's the MENA project called Bereaved Narrative Project, which give a chance for both sides to sit face to face, talk, listen, learn from each other. We gather for 8 times during 3 months. We have a professor, a Palestinian professor and Israeli professor who spoke about the history of the two nations. We went to visit Yad Vashem in New Zealand to learn much more about the Holocaust. We even went to visit a Palestinian village was existed for 1948. It's not about comparing the pain. It's not about telling who's first, who's second, who's right, who's wrong. It's about understanding. It's about knowing where everyone came from, about their background. And we have many activities. I remember the first one, they asked us to speak about something happened during the conflict affect our life, and that was the first time I spoke about my son. And that was so hard for me. Even after 16 years, it was like to open the wound again, bring the memories, the pain, the anger. I couldn't complete the story, and I started to cry. Then an Israeli woman came forward, and she started to apologize. And she said, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you from my own people, and I'm a mother too, I could understand your pain, I could understand even the word that you couldn't say. She came and hugged me, and both of us started to cry. To be honest, that was the first time I felt someone care about me, someone could really understand me if I didn't say a word. From that day, I decided to be a member of the forum, start to give lecture inside Israel, Palestine, travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And I thought I made everything right, and that's it, and I've become a great person. But life gave me another test. 3 years ago, I've been with Robbie in Jerusalem. We've been with other people from other organizations, start to talk about our stories. And after we finished, there's an Israeli man who stand up. His name is Han Alon. I know him like 3 years ago, but that was the first time I listened to his story. Then he mentioned that he was a high officer in the army, and he served in my area, and he prevented a Palestinian car which has 6 children from going to a hospital. Then it's become real, and it's become hard. Because in my whole life, I didn't think that I will meet one of those soldiers, and to be him in front of me, I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to do. I started to cry, and then Robbie asked both of us to go outside to speak, and then he said to me, I know this is so hard for you, and it's so hard for me, but it's so important to tell you that after time, my son became very sick, and when I tried to take him to a hospital, the guard stopped me because he wanted to ask me a few questions, and I was in a hurry, And then I realized what I did to the Palestinian. He quit from the army, he refused to serve again, and because of that, they sent him to jail. After that, he established another organization with ex-Palestinian fighters or prisoners to end the occupation, to start to work on the ground, to make a change. So I look at him and I said, look, Finn, this is really so hard for me to listen to you. But at the same time, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because you have that courage and that honesty to speak in front of me. And if I know that you didn't tell me that part of your story, I will never forgive you. But now I could tell you that I could forgive you. And then I realized this is the real reconciliation. It's so easy to speak about love and peace and all these lovely words, but sometimes we ask ourselves if we meant every word we say or everything we did. And that day, I really understand that this is what I want and this is what I need. And I remember a dream that I had that day. I saw a white dove came, stand on my shoulder and say to me, Mama, don't cry, I'm so happy. I know that he's happy. But I didn't understand at that time why he came as a white dove. Then I realized it was a symbol for peace, and it was like a kind of message from God to tell me this is your new mission. And he didn't want the death of my son, went without achieving something. And by the way, I have this pen. 2 days ago, Robbie gave it to me, and it's a white dove. And this is the best gift I've ever had in my whole life. Because it will always remind me about my son and about the dream, and even give me hope. Even during this difficult time that we live in now. I know that you know what happened in Israel and Gaza, but no one pay attention to what happened in the West Bank. Since the 7th of October until today, we're still under closure. So most of the people, or even students who work or who study inside Israel, they lost their jobs. They lost a lot of things. We didn't have shelters, and the rockets fell down in the West Bank from Iran, from Hamas, even from the Iron Dome, because these kind of rockets will never recognize if you are Palestinian or Israeli. The economic situation in the West Bank now is the lowest point. Most of the children, they couldn't go to school, and if they are lucky, they could go just for one day. And nowadays, they put a gate in front of every village and every city. No, there's a new gates now.
But there was before.
Yeah, but now it's
Checkpoints.
checkpoints. It's totally different. If you heard about checkpoints or gates, there's a big difference. In checkpoints, you could find soldiers. They could open the gate for you or even close it. But when you have a gate, that means it will be closed maybe from 7 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So if you have an urgent case or if someone be late, they could never go back home. And if you want to cross this gate, no one could open it for you. So it's like a big prison in every village, in every city. And there is no freedom of movement when you close every gate. So that means you couldn't use the road. And the worst part of all of this, that the settlers attack the Palestinians every day. They burn their cars, they burn their houses, they attack them everywhere. And I remember this year when we tried to pick olives, and the olive season, many Palestinians, they couldn't go to their land because even if they go, the settlers will come and they will attack them. And the hardest thing that the Israeli army, sometimes they encourage them or protect them, even if there is a Palestinian trying to protect himself and try to fight back, they will arrest him. Whatever I explain, I don't think that you will really see the picture clear. So because of that, we still believe that we could do something, and we couldn't lose hope because of our people from both sides, because we believe that every soul is so precious, and that created us to live and to love, not to kill each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leila. I think you can probably see now why we are in such high demand all over the country and all over the world, because these stories are not just painful stories, but they are stories of hope as well. There's hope here because they've suffered such terrible trauma in their life, and yet they're sitting here, they're friends, they're working together. They still believe in peace. If they can still believe in peace, we can certainly still believe in peace. But we couldn't keep up with this demand, so we created an educational program online called Listening from the Heart, and I want to talk to you just for a minute about that program, because it's really important, because there are so many people like you who are dealing with this issue, and this program can really help so many communities. We're going to show a brief clip of the program so you can get a sense, and then we'll take questions and answers. We'll take questions and we'll give answers.
How does it social?
I really encourage you to go online and take advantage of this program, and encourage your professors, faculty, student leaders to make use of this program. It's a rare opportunity to have our members here in the U.S., but by accessing this program, you can have access to their stories. I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions. I know that college campus is a hard place to be right now in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, so how can we help you? Yes.
I find it such a difficult issue.
He doesn't know what he was.
First of all, thank you so much for your time today. I feel so appreciative to be here in his presence. Wish the works like to buy election. I find it to be such a difficult thing for individuals, no matter what the subject is in life, to be able to hold an idea of understanding two truths, or at least the road to get it.
It's a
I know there's no simple answer to this kind of question, but what kinds of things can be helpful on the road to understanding two truths and a dialogue for a conversation?
I'll answer that if you don't mind. I'll just stand up, why not? I'm just thinking that what Lila was telling you in the beginning about this parallel narrative program that we run, the thing about the work that we do is about storytelling. If you sat in this room, you know, there are always some people who are more accepted than others, and there are truths in people's head that are not true, and ideas. So we decided amongst the parent circle initially that we had an innate sympathy for each other, but that didn't mean that we agreed with the history, how we saw the narrative of our histories. So, of course, because we shared the same pain, there was the sympathy. But where was the empathy for the stories that we told? A lot of what we do is how to listen with empathy, even if you don't agree. So there were 170 of us from the parent circle, and we went on this whole journey to firstly go to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum, which most Palestinians have never heard of. And it's not about comparison of suffering, it's about understanding. And then we went to a village called Lifta, which was a village in 1948 in Palestine in those days, which is now in Israel. And there was nothing left of the village. And actually, two of the members of our group came from there originally. And one of the mothers stood and he looked down and she saw the well that she drew water out of as a child. And then you could begin to understand how she was walking around with a key to a door that would never open. And you could have empathy for her story. It's not that you're going to go blow up that place and create another Palestinian village. And the professors that Lila was telling you about are Palestinian and Israeli, and it's like a history through the human eye. It's you take all the milestones of our history. How does the Palestinian see 1948, which was the Nakba, the catastrophe? How do we see 67, the war, 73, the war? Geez, I'm so old, I've been through all these wars. And how do each one interpret? And of course, there's a parallel narrative there, because everybody sees their history through their own eye. And so what happened, that is the learning of how to listen, even if you don't, with empathy, even if you don't agree. And that's such an important thing. And probably if you sat in a very big circle, all of you, well, I'll just tell you that I was at San Diego at the Joan Kroc School of Peace. They have a lovely program. They invited me to spend 9 weeks of deluxe luxury in San Diego. It was very nice. And I had a class, and there was such an ugly atmosphere in the class. And I recognized that I wasn't going to talk about Israel and Palestine. I wanted to find out what was going on. So I said, okay, I'm coming back tomorrow, and everybody will tell me why their parents came to America, or their grandparents. That's the storytelling that creates an opening for talking, because we don't know each other. It's one of the biggest problems of Israel and Palestine. If you will go into an average Israeli classroom of kids of 17, and you say to them, who of you have ever met a Palestinian? It's probably 1 or 2 in a class of 30 17-year-olds. And they're going to the army the next year. And who speaks Arabic? Maybe 1 in the class. And who's been overseas? 90% of the class. So there's this total cutoff. And so what happens when you don't actually know the person? You fear them. And when you fear, that's where hatred starts, and then it's violence. And so much of the work that we do is about storytelling. And that's a way, and because you're students, you know, we've been to so many campuses, to NYU, to Harvard, to Amherst, to Columbia. You can imagine a policeman at every corner. And NYU, where we launched this program, I realized that the students, I said to them, look, this is the first time that Palestine has been on the map for so many years. Why don't you actually do some research and discover the NGOs in Israel and Palestine that are working to end the occupation, that are working to end the war, to stop the violence, for reconciliation? It doesn't have to be the parent circle, right? It could be Combatants for Peace, it could be Women Wage Peace, it could be Breaking the Silence, which are either an amazing group of kids who've been in the army. And why don't you support them? It doesn't have to be money, morally. Because if you want to make a difference, that's how you will make a difference in my life, in Seema's life, in Lila's life, and in Moore's life. By waving a flag, nothing's going to happen to change anything. So that's the challenge. You know, it's so easy to import our conflict. You'll be pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, you'll feel great about yourself, but what good is it doing? And so through, maybe even in the anger that you experience, when you tell a story about who you are and why you think, and if you're willing to listen with empathy, even if you don't agree, it's an extraordinary opening for conversations. I've got no voice anymore.
Do you want some water? Yeah.
Eh?
Do you want some water?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, hold on.
No.
Thank you
That's fine.
all so much. That is so giving me some quite very stories. So thank you for trusting us.
Well, you have to talk up, my dear.
Thank you. Trigger. Thank you.
Sort of, if you don't. I don't know, maybe it's a rubbish.
It's good. I appreciate so much the stories. And I was told by someone once that revenge is a lazy form of grief.
But
And that really struck me. And so I would ask of you all, what would be a robust form of grief that doesn't keep recycling us back to the site of trauma that moves us towards the site of healing?
Could you just say, this before I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it in action, but I just didn't know if you had any other thoughts about that.
Yes, so for me, grief is, first of all, it's sadness, and it's to miss very much the people that we have lost. But in my opinion, revenge is not a cure for grief, because revenge can't bring back the people that we lost. And it's not going to make me miss my parents less if there is a revenge. So for me, the healing part is to try and do my best so other people don't experience the same loss that we did.
You see, grief doesn't go away. Okay? You learn to live with it next to you. And you use it. I want to share to say that the story is what I use to make an emotional engagement with somebody's heart, that they will recognize the humanity. Because you have to be a very tough, hard person not to be affected by any one of these four stories. And so this is our way of work, and it works.
When I spoke about forgiveness, that didn't mean that I would forget. I would not forget myself. I had never forget what happened to them. But for me, forgiveness is to put the hatred and the anger away and don't think of them anymore. Because that will not just affect my life, but even like loved ones who still alive, like my husband, my daughter, and even it caused me health issues. It's one of our member, I love it, he spoke about that and he said it will eat you alive. And that's really, like when you just think about to take revenge, and that will stuck in your head and you will be much more angry and blame everyone, and I think this will never help you anymore. And if, for us Palestinians, if I will take revenge, I will never take revenge from the person who did this, because I will never know who he is. But I will take revenge from another innocent person, and I will bring another innocent family to this cycle of violence. And I will never do this to anyone, and I will never let anyone to be in the same situation that he had.
Simon, did you want to say anything?
No.
Did you have anything to
About
say?
forgiving, Shiri. It's very important that you know that this is not a prerequisite simple. We are for creating reconciliation, for non-violence, and for stopping the occupation. And forgiving is a very personal thing. So whatever I say in my life or Lila, it doesn't mean, because mainly from the Palestinian side, there was not known ever killed their loved one. And now the Israelis since October 7th are in more or less the same situation. So I would really suggest also that you think to yourself, what is forgiving? Everybody comes up with a different answer. So we don't have the monopoly of truth of that, but it's an interesting question which we have ways of time about. We would ask each other what our definition of forgiving is.
We have time for a few more questions.
thank you so much for coming and sharing your stories. It's really the opportunity that we have in front of the chance to engage in.
It's just because it's
We haven't had the opportunity to have any sort of conversation like this on college campuses, and so thank you for enabling that. I think going to a lot of places of higher education on this tour, and this is something I want to ask you as people in our community and living an experience that we have so much discourse about on these campuses. I think at a lot of the schools you'll be speaking at and have spoken at in this school as well, there's a lot of conversation about what is our responsibility as being connected to places with huge endowments and investments. What can we do? And I think that it's in the news, it's in conversations here, there's an understanding that perhaps our endowment shouldn't be invested in weapon manufacturers and corporations and politicians who profit from enabling violence and pain and suffering of people. And I guess I ask you on a personal level, and as people who are so much more connected than the way that we bounce ideas off each other in a classroom, what do you make of this? And is there something that you think is missing from this point of view and this approach to an American role in what we can do to make change? And what would you say to students who I think are trying to work through what we should be doing? Yeah.
Recognize it. Look, it's a deeply complicated situation, right? And these are no experts on American higher academia. I think what's important is to ask ourselves every time we do something, or we take an action, or we go to a protest, or we cancel someone, or we don't go to a family member's house for dinner, is to really ask ourselves, is what I'm doing, is what I'm saying helping more? Is what I'm doing right now, is this benefiting SEMA? Am I digging in or am I digging out? I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Is what I'm doing right now for this protest or advocating in a certain way, am I digging into the conflict, or am I helping to get out of the conflict? And so much of what we do, whether it's on college campuses or it's at a government level, does not ask that question. It does not put these 4 women at the front of that question or that action. And I beg you to think about these 4 women in your mind, picture them at the front of every question like that. Before you do take any action, before you say anything, before you post anything on social media, is what I'm going to post right now going to help these women? That's the test.
One more question.
One more question. Not? We'll make the trek back to Los Angeles. Thank you so much for having us here.